So I had the idea that it might be good or important or helpful to make a sort of a WikiLeaks now and then type video. So around 2009, I got really into the Pirate Bay. I really like entertainment law and the music industry, so I was into it for that angle. Thought Anakata was brilliant telling off the recording industry, and I grew up with my dad doing a lot of research in recording industry stuff, so a lot of it rang a lot of bells. So the thing that really bugged me is I was like, well, the internet is such a vast and amazing tool. What's really going to happen is this was going to be used to create massive upheavals politically. Because who cares, like, if you have the next pop song? But if you have political information being shared in this massive, fast format, things are going to change really rapidly. So I kind of already knew something would happen. Um, by the time I first saw Assange, I believe it was on Democracy Now! In April of 2010, I was still in Los Angeles. I was working paralegal school work, and I really didn't pay too much attention. I thought he was like, because he's well spoken and has his stuffy Australian English hybrid accent, I just assumed he was, I don't know, with Amnesty International or any normal, concern for human rights type thing. I didn't really pay much attention. But then that summer, I was going to Portland State University taking economics classes that were frankly pretty boring. So I was surfing the web a lot in classes and um, found Aaron Swartz and WikiLeaks about the same time. So the data thing from Swartz's MIT thing, I was just like, yeah, this is a problem that's really bugging me. I hate paywalls. I read a lot of academic journals. This is annoying. What's up with all this funded research that is being sheltered away for rich people, basically? So I dug him, and then I remember maybe the very first time I logged on to wikileaks.org and was like, okay. And I think I just thought my very first impression were something like, oh, this is weird, but this is cool. And a lot of that, say, 2010 web design was made to look almost exactly like Wikipedia. And I believe that was intentional, that the wikiization of WikiLeaks kind of helped neutralize the concept. So it created a neutral idea. It's just information sharing, like Wikipedia. It's very similar to Wikipedia. It looks like Wikipedia. The font is similar to Wikipedia. The coloration, kind of like an old basic web architecture. And Wikipedia, I think it's coming from like a Beaverton programmer called it Wiki, is something Hawaiian for quick, something. There's some story about why Wiki even just became a tech term. But I continued not to pay too much attention. One day I'm at the Starbucks. Like, I think it's cool. I like read a little bit about the traffic era toxic dumping stuff. And I'm like, ooh, okay, environmental activists, that's cool. So I'm at Starbucks at Pioneer Courthouse Square. I pick up a New York Times. Boom, the Swedish sexual assault allegations are coming up. And then I'm like, oh, intriguing. Like, is that what you want to do with your life, basically? Um, I'm thinking, what an idiot. Like, what a wasted mind. Like, you kind of had a brilliant thing going there for a second. And so then I really started following it closely. I believe, gosh, that must have been early October 2010, because by October 12th, 2010, I booked a flight to Sweden, officially to hear Dunyan, my like Swedish rock band, play. But no, where did I go? I actually went to London first. Well, no, where did I go? Yeah, I went to Sweden, then I went to London. So when I went to London, I went to his law firm, Finer Stevens Innocent, and was like, "Hi, I'm studying paralegal. I want to work for you." Of course, in America, like, and no, so it's like on Old Portland Street, and I just like leave some information, like an email. I actually got an email back from Mark Stevens, which blew my mind. I was sitting at the Tate Modern when I got that, and I was like, "Huh, okay." So I think I got him on the phone too at the same time. I don't know. So back then I used Skype for everything. Skype was really easy to use for making international calls. So what's the point? I ran into somebody, say, in 2011 summer London, who was an Australian named Alice Segretti. Alice Segretti has something to say. Ali basically explained that Assange was under, prosecution agreements regarding his juvenile stuff, his early 20s stuff, and was under agreement to work for U.S. intelligence. And Ali kind of said hi in court and knew that there was some recognition there because they had both been involved in some stuff with like space, hacking space databases or something. And I think early in 2010, as I'm getting, following this, I read some maybe disrespected conspiracy theorist who's just like, oh, no, this is all like covert activities. This is all psychological warfare. He isn't who he says he is. So by the time I'm in Sweden in 2011, as the Arab Spring is downloading, and supposedly WikiLeaks cables are being like printed into Arab dictatorships, and now dictators are falling. Somebody I'm talking to at a computer store in Sweden was just like, oh yeah, isn't it all kind of contrived that there just happens to be this massive toppling of dictators and then redevelopment and economic development. And what it was my understanding was that in the Arab-speaking world, it was commonly understood that WikiLeaks was a government intel agency front group purporting to be independent. So that there was like a different narrative for England, a different narrative for America. And where did those narratives go? So I attended court case stuff in July 2011, November and December 2011, and Supreme Court of England, their new Supreme Court, in 2012 regarding extradition. And I also attended a parliamentary debate as well as the backbench debate, which is when I got to speak to Zach Goldsmith, who then was talking about extradition and differing norms in judicial, in like differing countries in the European Union, and how the disparate jurisdictions are kind of dubious. So as for Assange being arrested April 11th, I was having an interesting day myself, and the Ecuadorian embassy thing, it's kind of hard to believe that that actually happened. I didn't really believe in Snowden either. I mean, no, but does anybody ever ask if Snowden is at least a double, if not a triple agent for someone or something? Like, what if he just has his story? What if his story is a cover story? And I don't think people think so deeply about those things. By 2012 summer, my head was just in a tangle. I was like, is it a front? Is it a real thing? Is it a front? Is it a real thing? And I just came to accept I will never know. What I knew from a feeling when I first basically interacted with Assange after seeing him speak with Slavoj Žižek and like interjecting when Slavoj was getting nasty. And then I see him outside the court. He's trying to pass out his court papers about his sexual attacking these women up in Sweden, which are just some pretty gory information in those about like pinning a woman's legs and that sort of thing. So I, when I speak to him, I some people just have energy. It was a very weird sort of eerie space-time bubble of speaking to him, and I called him by his first name, Julian, and I said, "May I have a copy?" And then we just sort of stood there in this like weird, could be cult leader aura type thing he gives off. I don't know. I think it's I took it to mean it was almost as if he understood that I understood that nothing was as it seems. And that was perfectly fine. But everyone was acting a role. That's what I got out of it. And I understood that it was necessary to overthrow massive military dictatorships the quickest way possible. The internet revolution was making it possible. It was easier than boots on the ground and invasions and blah, blah, blah. It was happening in a different way, but it was business as usual heretofore, like CIA or Five Eyes or whatever. And as the puzzle kept just, it was like this gnarly puzzle. For one thing, personality-wise, I just completely had to just write it off. Like, I could not stand his misogyny. He's kind of a disgusting and vulgar and petty person, right? So I made that very, very clear 2012, but I sort of like still like watched from a distance, like a year of a snake. And by 2012, I just kind of accepted I will never know. Gaddafi was killed. That was like gruesome. And then by 2013, Aaron Swartz was dying. And then I just kind of emerged into local politics. I just started going to my city council and talking about important things like human rights and treatment of women, honor killing, anything international law related that I had been studying. And from there, it became more of a struggle for my own life and existence in America, which I had decided I was worth waging, or was something I was going to do, which I sort of grounded myself in America, because I would rather not live here in some respects, with a lack of cultural opportunities I find dreadful. But from there, I just watched this whole supposed embassy thing unfold, and then the involvement in the 26th thing unfold, and everybody has their theories. And I don't know that I have any theories anymore, except that I do think he probably suffered child abuse in that cult his mother was dabbling in, including extreme psychotropic drugging as a child, possible sexual abuse as a child. That his father, I was moved recently by his father's anti-war peacenikism, because I think that was his sell. He's like, "Hi, I'm a peacenik. Hi, look at how horrible war is, collateral murder, yada yada." And maybe there's an element of truth to that. But I've seen activists get off track. Like, I've seen a vegan veer off where it's 90% misogyny, 10% veganism. And I think with him, he really got off track in terms of his misogyny and his inability to have healthy, normal sexual relationships, even polyamorous, healthy, sexual, normal, healthy, sexual, consensual things. So I think if that was just the way he had to derail his own train, this blogger, I don't even slightly agree with the way he blogged. I believe he may be deceased or in poor health now, but I hung out with him in Sweden, named Göran Rudling, spelled Goran, Goran. He told me a funny word in Swedish, and it's rättshaveristi, rätts being rights, and haveristi meaning like either a train wreck or a car wreck. But it means like rights train wreck. But it's someone who is so absorbed with their own sense of their own rights that they're constant. It's kind of connotes what we in America would say litigious. maybe not vexatious, but someone who's very absorbed in their own legal catastrophes to the point that it becomes their like full-time concern and interest, and that he would say Julian Assange was a Retz Havaristi. And the other thing I thought I would try to breach, oh my god, this is 15 minutes now, is astral projection. Like I kind of think that people we meet, who we connect with in any way, which I think I did connect. I scanned his doc. It was on his website for a while. Then one day I changed the coding into the his legal filing. I'm wondering, is he using my name because it's Eng? I'm absorbed with whether or not he's some kind of agent. And I pulled the plug on it by basically saying, why don't you stop abusing these women? Change the title to something like Stop Abusing the Women. And because he was actively being like a cyber troll and cyber harassing them and engaging his mob armies of trolls to do so. And I just found it unconscionable. And uh, in terms of astral projection, I think anyone you've contacted, anyone you've had any interaction with, there's some kind of resonance that's still going on in the fabric of the collective unconsciousness. And I think of him as a human that I've met who's in a prison. I think in some ways, kind of like my ex who tried to kill me, prison might be a good place for him as long as he's not being murdered or raped or something. Like, I think he needs a lot of structure and he probably needs a lot of rest. I know he has workaholic tendencies. He's probably overworked, so he needs a lot of rest. One other way I thought of it in terms of the extradition is that, or a potential extradition to the US, of course I would love to go to court. Like, oh my God, that would be the most interesting case ever if it ever happens. But I thought, well, you'll be an American now. You'll be safe here. Because in certain ways, America can provide some security in some circumstances to some kinds of people, like a large amount of security and room to breathe. The reasons I came back. And they will probably give him some busy work or a shorter sentence or busy work in jail, or he could write blogs from jail or something, you know. There's some life he could carve out for himself. And then what's there to say? He's a Cancer of the zodiac. They're very emotional and they're prone to their mood swings. They tend to blame everybody else for their own problems because they're so kind of childlike, but they are very nurturing. And the thing I was also thinking of is that good people can do bad things. Say his intentions were purely good to help with the war. His misogyny against Hillary Clinton, I don't like Bill Clinton's creepy sex abuser side. Who does? I don't like it. I think Bill Clinton is grotesque in that way. And I don't know. I follow Louise Mensch's theories that, oh yes, he's a Russian agent and blah blah blah. I'm also just not even sure how much he really helped Trump win. Did he really? Was that just a train wreck that was going to happen anyway? I don't know. And I think his own sense of grandeur and self-importance is huge. I thought of him as an economic hitman. And some of the things I learned about record keeping, I learned from Julian Assange. The blogger who I am today is because he mentored me in a remote and distant sense by watching the way he works. And there are ways that I'm very lucky because I don't have any skills towards doing anything, breaching databases. He was a true computer nerd. I did hang out with David House in London, and I didn't quite realize he was active in helping build things or that he would be called to testify for grand jury. Very nice guy. Very nice, very beautiful, very inspiring. And he let me sleep on the floor of his little tiny room at the Frontline Club. And he said, well, you can come to my bed. I was like, no, I won't, because you're so cute. He was so cute. But he was completely like trustworthy and adorable and innocent. And the day we found out he testified for grand jury, and he was like, well, I don't have an embassy to hide in. I was like, wow. And I had this premonition, David House in 2020. Like, I felt like this is someone who is such a charismatic and dynamic leader or individual that something very important will come up. So during the that cute State Department guy, Mr. Holmes, that David Holmes, was testifying in the impeachment hearings, I was just like, oh, just call EDVA. Who cares? So I finally call EDVA, and I was like, well, if there's something I know that you need to know, please feel free to call me, which of course they never do. But I sometimes feel that, well, maybe the whole purported extradition is just going to be a sham. I always suspected they would assassinate him. And that was part of why I tagged along, was to be a human shield. And literally when I was helping just be a part of the mob, the throng in these court crushes that were, very, very close to stampedes, I knew I was essentially functioning as an undercover security, because people, once they get to that level of madness in like public furor and adoration, they need a little extra support. So it was strange, because it was just like almost so much natural. When things flow nicely in an operational sense. And then what's with the Amal Clooney thing? I mean, good God, she was Amal Alamuddin on his arm, July 2011, and I'm there because I'm thinking, well, you need women, because obviously, you're probably a rapist, and we need some women to like prop this up, or give you a veneer of respectability, helping the poor rapist off to get extradited to Sweden. And I think in some ways, if we hadn't had the discussions around Assange's assaults that we had online, we would not have the Me Too movement. Nobody's really said that, but I'm saying that. I'm saying that we have to hash out all the nuances of what everybody calls gray zone stuff, or if you rape the woman that you just slept with in her sleep, is it still rape? Yes. If you tear a condom, is it still rape? Yes. If you forcefully pin her knees down so she can't kick you off her, is that a sexual assault? Yes. We needed to have those conversations. And when I was parsing this creepy guy with herpes who lives in my town did some weird attack on me, I was able to piece back to Julian Assange's document he handed me about pinning this woman's knees. And I realized, well, this man pinned my knees too. That's very rapist-y. One does not pin a woman's knees as you force a sex organ on her or in her. In his case, he was having sex as he pinned her knees. In this case, the man was rubbing his penis on my thigh. So that was Christopher Duffy. So Christopher Duffy didn't really expect to get into my Julian Assange related blogging, which I really have had nothing to say about him for years. Nothing. I found him rather tiresome. And his fans and friends are even worse. They were stalking me to the point of trying to push me over the edge, I suppose, and I just kind of like deleted, disengaged. I found a few critical thinkers out there that I blogged with, and I really know nothing of value other than all of it seems like an antique radio to me today. It all seems so passé. All the revelations and revolutions regarding information sharing. Although I do realize some of the more futuristic humans maybe are still ahead of some of the, say, local bureaucrats in whatever town you may choose to live in. So I guess that'll be it. I'm sorry about this little blemish, people. Enjoy the sunlight.